Lesson 12, Prana. I mentioned a couple of times that in yoga everything is about energy. It's not about the physical body. If you open any serious yoga book, you will not find a chapter or even a paragraph on physical anatomy. What you do find is what we call subtle anatomy. That is about energy. It's about the chakras. Next week we will discuss the chakras in detail. Before we do that, we have a look at the structure of the physical anatomy. Because of the importance of this as a foundation of the way that we approach yoga, we have actually already talked about this to some extent, at least in lesson 3. It was a double subject at that time. So we're going to have a little closer look at more details. The Hatha Yoga Pradipika. On the front of the Hatha Yoga Pradipika you see this image. There's an image of a person in meditation. And what it shows is the chakras and the energy channels as they are symbolically represented in yoga. So what we have, there are 7 chakras. There's Muladhara, Svadhisthana, Manipura, Anahata, and Vishuddhi. These are all pictured in that illustration as circles, as balls. These 5 together constitute the physical body. The mental body is Ajna Chakra. Although it is in and around the head, it is not considered part of the physical body. It's a separate body on its own. It's also not pictured as a circle or a ball, but it's a diamond or a gem. The 7th chakra, which is above the head, is pictured as a flame, representing light, the light of knowledge, the light of insight. That is really what light in religion and philosophy is about. You have the festival of Diwali, just a couple of weeks ago I think it took place. That is the festival of light. People celebrate that with fireworks and lots of light, candles and what have you. But light is symbolism. It's not about the light itself materially, it's about what it represents. It represents wisdom, insight, intuition, the highest level of evolution that human beings can reach. Christmas is also a celebration of light. You can interpret that in many ways. It's the end of the darkness. The days slowly start becoming longer again, going towards spring. But it can also be interpreted in the same way. It is the celebration of spirit, and spirit is symbolically represented by light. light in the darkness. Darkness is the condition of ignorance that the majority of mankind finds itself in. Spiritual practices and religious practices too, if done correctly, lead to increased or awakening and then increasing widening of consciousness. What we're going to have a look at is how technically how this is accomplished. The title of the handout is Prana. Prana is energy, but not just energy, it's vital energy. In Korean it's called Ki, in Chinese it's called Qi. Energy as is, without the vitality that we're looking at here, is just energy. But vital energy is the energy that is responsible, on a practical level, it's responsible for very good health. People who possess vital energy barely ever get sick. So good health, but it is responsible for the process opening up consciousness, awakening consciousness. In Sanskrit, that energy, in yoga terms, that energy is called Kundalini, and it is symbolically represented as a snake. This is a snake head. A snake that is coiled up, sleeping at the bottom of the spine. It's symbolism. There is no snake at the bottom of your spine. But what is important is it's dormant. And actually, if you practice yoga correctly, that snake wakes up. And it starts to rise up. But before we come to the rising up of Kundalini energy, we have a look at the other two energies. There is Shiva and there is Shakti energy. Symbolically, they are pictured as two energy channels. Shiva energy comes into our body through the top and it descends. It's the energy that is responsible for recovery when we're tired, but also recovery when we're sick. It is the dominant energy from evening until morning that makes us want to and go to sleep, and during our sleep it makes us fully recover from all the activities of the day. The channel through which Shiva flows, so Shiva energy, the name of the channel is Ida. The other energy always exists out of two opposing polarities. The other energy enters in the body through the bottom of the spine and winds around the chakras in the opposite way that Shiva does when it goes down. This energy is called Shakti. And the channel is Pingala. you look at the illustration, you can see these two channels. And if you enlarge the picture a little bit, you can see also that these energies, the channels, are mentioned, and all the names of the chakras are also mentioned in the illustration. What you also see is a third channel. A third channel that goes straight through the middle. This channel is called Sushumna. Sushumna is a special channel. In most people it doesn't manifest, it doesn't function. Because Sushumna Nadi is an energy channel. So Ida, Pingala, Sushumna Nadi manifests, becomes functional when Shiva and Shakti energy are relatively harmonious. When there is sattva, harmony. That is why yoga must be practiced in silence, without distractions. That is why churches, temples, monasteries are so silent. I would almost use the word dead silent. Silent. Have you ever been into a cathedral? Have you noticed anything special there? Or a temple, if you go into the mountains to a real, not those in the neighborhood, but a real old temple. You know, I was in Paris once and I went to this very old cathedral. That must have been what's it called? Notre Dame, yeah, exactly. And I was so impressed. I'm not religious, or at least not in the sense that you know, in the dogmatic sense, but I'm very spiritual. And I walked in there, and it's so high, and nada was so strong. And just that would just instantly make me religious in itself. It was such a wonderful experience. That building is built to bring about sattva so that you can connect with God, which is the crown chakra really. If we look at it from non-dogmatic perspective, so that you start functioning in the crown chakra. The old architects and builders knew those secrets. That is where this secret society of the Freemasons comes in. They knew secrets that normal people knew nothing about, and they knew how to build buildings. It's kind of, in China you call it feng shui. You build buildings based on energy, not just on what it looks like. It has to have a purpose. So Sushumna Nadi becomes functional in people who practice yoga. And you already notice when you just do a simple thing like a tree pose or a triangle pose. That is that sense of, that is why you hear nada in between and even during the exercise. If you pay attention, nada is there and it's actually very clear, which is an indication that energy is rising up. Because nada is energy, it's a vibration of the energy. in Ajna Chakra. So when nada is there, it is an indication that your energy is on higher levels. That is important because if you've read the handout, you see that most people, the majority of the people, the point of gravity of consciousness in most people is below the diaphragm, below in the lower 3 chakras. And the location of lower emotions and desires. So all the thoughts that we have, all decisions that we make, all actions that we take are mainly driven and motivated by lower emotions and desires as a result of this reality. And this, of course, changes when energy rises up to higher levels of consciousness. We start to function differently. We're not only our consciousness changes, or in the first place awakens and then continues to expand, but we start functioning differently. The first chakra that is activated when we rise above the diaphragm is the heart chakra. That is also emotions and desires, but we make a distinction. Below the diaphragm is considered lower emotions and desires. Above the diaphragm we consider higher emotions and desires. The heart is the location of love, unconditional love, empathy, compassion. It is in fact the highest achievement in yoga to have an open heart. Like Jesus and other saints are often pictured with a burning heart. That is symbolism for a spiritual person who has reached the highest level, where the heart is open. We will come back to that when we discuss the heart chakra. So, yoga is designed to create a condition that allows all this to happen. You can call it magic. And it is so simple that people just don't believe this is true. It's so simple to accomplish this amazing transformation that if you explain it in such a no-nonsense and practical way as I do, people say, yeah, that is a nice story, but is that really true? In the Bible, that is called doubting Thomas. Doubting Thomas, the majority of the population is doubting Thomas because we don't believe in things that we cannot concretely prove. This change is real and it changes people's lives. The snake awakens, rises up, because that's what snakes do, they rise up and fuel the chakras on the higher levels, and it leads to the awakening of consciousness. Awakening is a concept that all philosophies, spiritual philosophies and religions talk about. And it leads to all the wonderful characteristics, the manifestation of all the wonderful characteristics that are located on the level of the crown chakra. Interesting in this also is, with a little bit of imagination, you see a model here that you come across in daily life in almost every part of the world. Where do you see this? In hospitals and doctors' clinics. In Latin it is called esculapum. In Dutch we call it, yeah. And if you look at the esculapum, it's on the side of the ambulances. In most countries, ambulances have an esculapum on the side or on the back of the car. In clinics, in hospitals, you see that symbol. It's a symbol of vitality, of health. It's a and it's not exclusive to India. It's a universal symbol. And if you pay attention, you will see that there is also the third channel. So very interesting how everything is actually linked, connected. What happens? The practical significance of practicing yoga correctly, leading to the rising up of the vital energy that is called Kundalini, that is, it's not only that it leads to awakening of consciousness, the manifestation of deep insight, wisdom, intuition, but also unconditional love. But it leads to us, we talked about Svadhyaya last week, self-study. It leads to an evaluation and a revaluation of everything we have always taken for granted. You very naturally start to contemplate everything that you have absorbed since you were born. And that determines, that makes up who we think we are. As a result of Kundalini rising up, as a result of awakening of consciousness, we get in touch with our true characteristics. That when you discover them, you find out that they have nothing to do with everything you always thought was your reality. With everything that you have absorbed and identified with since you were born. It is because of this that many people who transform as a result of a practice like yoga or something that leads to the same effect, that people, they start to change in a very gradual and natural way. Things that seemed important in the past lose their significance. You develop a new reality. You develop also a new insight in who you are, because you make soul contact. You develop soul consciousness. You develop insight into your heart's content. In Buddhism and in yoga also, this is called Dharma. And there are temples in Korea when you can go and listen to a Dharma talk. I've never done that, I've never attended, so I don't know exactly what they mean by that. But Dharma is most of the times, if you ask or if you read about it, it's translated as destiny. And you can indeed see it as destiny. Because your awakening helps you to discover what you really need to do in this life. That is your true destiny. And it is most of the times very different from what you have been educated to do. And it's very often very different from what you always believed you need to do based on your upbringing, based on your culture, based on the environment in which you grew up, the schools that you attended, etc. The hobbies that you have. But to understand Dharma better, you need to know that apart from destiny, the real meaning actually of Dharma is essence. Essence of you. That little egg in the middle of the onion that is covered up by all these layers that shape the onion. Most people are not aware of their Dharma or their true essence. And you become aware of that gradually as a result of awakening consciousness. So spirituality, awakening consciousness, all these concepts that we talk about, they're often being talked about as something that is a luxury. Spirituality is something for people that have time and room to engage in those kind of practices. But it is of essential importance that we develop insight into our Dharma or into our true nature, our true essence. The more people connect with their true essence, the less chaos and misery we see in our societies. Ajita always said that if 1 in 100 people practice yoga or any form of spirituality that leads to these developments, there will be no crime anymore. Or crime at least will be reduced enormously as a result. Because the harmony that this one person has radiates out to their environment, and it influences other people's behavior as well. So it's not a luxury at all. People who are lost find their way as a result of this, and as a result also, we simply become people that are more in harmony with ourselves, but we also bring more harmony to the environment in which we function. That is at home, in our family. When I started practicing yoga, I'm from a big family. It totally changed everything in our family. It really did. So your harmony affects the environment in which you function. At home, at work, in school, but also when you interact with people, when you go to the supermarket or the neighbors that live in the same building where you live. So not a luxury, it is of essential importance that more and more people go through this development. Prana is vital energy. Energy, just as is, does not rise up. When energy becomes focused, as a result of sattva, increasing sattva, it starts to rise up, and leading to all kinds of wonderful manifestations. But another thing that comes together in the package is vitality. If you look around, many people are lacking vitality. And the older we get, the more we lack vitality. But look at people that practice spirituality in one form or another. And regardless of age, you will see vitality. I always use as an example the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu. You know Desmond Tutu? Yeah, he's Archbishop. Unfortunately, he died. But he is a Catholic or a Christian. The Dalai Lama is a Buddhist. But you know what? They were great friends. And one thing that they have in common is their vitality. When they are together, they are dancing in their spiritual robes. They're joking with each other. They're giggling like little kids. Can you see any 80-year-old behave like that? You don't. Why? Because the energy is lacking. The vitality is lacking. And when vitality is lacking, there is no higher spirit. You are in higher spirits when you are in such a jolly mood, when you're full of joy, when you start pranking each other like little children, dancing. That's what they do. When they do that on their own, maybe. I've seen videos in which they do that, and I recognize what was happening there. It's vital energy, and every person can possess these energies.
They wrote a book about it. It's called the Book of Joy.
They did? Interesting.
It's called the Book of Joy. Interviews Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu.
Right. Interesting.
Very nice book.
Wonderful people. Yeah. But this is also how you can distinguish real spiritual people from not real spiritual people. There are a couple of popes in the past 50 years that I can look at and not have. There is no sparkle in those people. The current pope, I was very happy when he became pope because he is enlightened. And I thought he was like 60 years old or so, and I thought, well, for the next 30 years, finally we have a real pope. But he is much older. He just looked so young because he was full of... But sadly, I don't know what they do there in the Vatican, but sadly he aged very quickly there and he lost his sparkle. No? Yeah, I don't know. I just have a feeling...
He's holy for me, so...
Yeah, of course, that enlightenment that never goes away, but he became so I don't know, gray and I don't know. But the current pope, wonderful. The ones that came before, I don't know about their achievements, but no sparkle. Vital energy is sparkle, regardless of age. And it leads to very great health. You just barely get sick anymore. How that works, we will also explain when we talk about the chakras. When we read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. This is very interesting. If only for that, we need to practice yoga. The secret of seduction, the final part of the handout, we talked about this in lesson 3. And I told you to make notes of this. Because Shiva, that is feminine energy. But it's a male god. Shakti is a goddess. But it represents masculine energy. And people scratch their head and say, why? That's illogical. But there is a reason behind that symbolism. You see the same in the yin and yang model, if you understand what you're looking at. And it's important that you understand this. There are many yoga books. I have leafed through yoga books, sometimes even bought yoga books And then the author writes that Shiva energy is masculine and Shakti energy is feminine, which makes me realize they have not been really trained in yoga. They have not been initiated into yoga properly, because they do not know the secrets of yoga. They just write something that maybe they read somewhere else. So that is why I tell you to make notes of this, because sooner or later you're going to ask yourself, hey, how did it work again? Because somebody sooner or later is going to tell you, hey, what you are telling me is not correct because Shiva is male and Shakti is female, and you are turning things upside down. And if you then have forgotten what I explained here, you will scratch your head and say, oh, you are right. I've been there and done that. And the confusion made me contact Ajita, and Ajita then made me aware of this anecdote about the secret of seduction. And secret of seduction, it's called the secret of seduction because a good seducer, a skillful seducer does exactly what is described here. Has the ability to go onto the wavelength of the person they want to have attention from. And that is the story of Shiva and Shakti here, with Lord Shiva. When Lord Shiva wants attention from his wife Shakti, he goes to his wife's wavelength by being gentle and nice. While Shakti, when wanting the attention of Lord Shiva or her husband or her lover, she starts to dance, she starts to move. And I suspect that belly dancing, which is often done in a place where people gather, especially men gather, that has the same kind of chemistry behind it. Traditional belly dance. Questions? Okay, let's have a short break.